1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just talk for a second. Talk, Brett.
Sure. This is Brett Kent here with Bill Conrad on October 6th.
And we are live right now on this is behind the scenes. So the YouTube is is the main listen to item, which is here. So you just do a couple more sounds check. Brett, just talk to me a little bit. This is before we go on for the podcast, but again, you grew up in Colorado.
Correct.
And you went to school where?
The University of Colorado in Boulder.
Boulder. Oh, we went to Boulder. Uh-oh. I thought like everyone's a hippie that comes out of Boulder.
Well, I grew up in Colorado Springs, which is a very conservative town. And then I got my higher education in Boulder, which is a very liberal town.
Were you a brat?
So it was an interesting, well, my father did serve in the military. He's a U.S. Marine Corps Vietnam combat veteran. In fact, he was in Vietnam when I was born. He didn't see me till I was 6 months old. And my full name is William Brett Kent because my father wanted me to carry his name, William, in case he didn't make it back. But fortunately, he did.
That's good. So sounds okay there. Sounds good here. We just did a sound check as you're talking. So we're going to go right into this because you're in the middle of a campaign right now. So we got to get you in and out. And I appreciate you coming in for the interview.
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to actually formally start it. So I got to hit that button. We're started. And then I'll do the editing on the podcast. Well, Brett, welcome to Timelines of Success. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to be here.
Thanks for having me, Bill. I appreciate it.
Just for those who don't know, it's not all about politics, but you happen to be running for office. But we're talking today about your profession and what you do and how you got to where you are. Tell us a little bit about how you became an attorney and what are you doing now?
Well, one thing I would encourage any who's law or has recently embarked on a career in the law, I would encourage them to think outside the box because I've thought outside the box at several stages in my career and I have never regretted it. When I graduated law school 21 years ago, instead of immediately taking the bar and looking for a job, I got a job on a container ship and worked my passage down to New Zealand and traveled through the Pacific Rim for almost a year before I came to Nevada, where my parents had relocated to Gardnerville and visited them and fell in love with the place and never left except for a 2-year brief period about 12 years ago, right after my wife and I got married, when we had an opportunity to move to Micronesia in the middle of the Pacific, and I served as legal counsel to the president of the Federated States of Micronesia.
So was that one of your first jobs?
No, that was actually in the middle of my career. I had actually spent time in private practice, and I had actually spent several years at the Attorney General's office and had been promoted to a senior deputy position. But my wife and I had met each other, fallen in love. I'd gone through a health event in which I had a brain tumor that gave me a new look on, and so this was a new adventure and opportunity that presented itself. And so my wife and I moved over to Micronesia for 2 years. Right after we got married, it was kind of a 2-year honeymoon. She, I, and our dog, and we lived there and enjoyed that experience and adventure until we came back to Nevada to start a family, had our son Kyle, and I've been here ever since.
Very good. So you came from Colorado. Your family your dad retired over here, I take it?
Yes. My parents had relocated to
Gardnerville. And you grew up around Colorado Springs.
That's where I grew up, correct. My sister, who's 10 years younger than me, she grew up in Gardnerville and graduated from Douglas High.
Wow. 10 years younger. So family starts. Are you the oldest?
Yes, I am.
Well, I guess we never asked that question in timelines. So I figure out some of the psyche between the oldest and the youngest. Do you have one sister?
I have a brother who's about 5 years younger than me who races sailboats all over the world. And I have a sister who's 10 years younger than me who's an engineer at the National Renewable Energy Lab in Golden, Colorado.
Must be in the genes. Golden's a nice town too, isn't it?
Yeah. And my sister and her family actually live in Boulder. My old stomping grounds from my college days.
Yeah. You went from a very conservative town into Boulder.
Yes.
So very good, Brett. You have a good background. And when you went out, you had your law degree when you went out on the container ship?
I did.
That must have been interesting. But no licenses, no merchant marine licenses?
No. I was just what they call an AB, an able-bodied seaman. And what you spend your time doing 6 days a week is generally stripping paint off of rusting portions of the ship and repainting those rusting portions of the ship, because the battle with a large ship is rust.
Corrosion.
You're at sea, corrosion. And so the able-bodied seamen spend the majority of their time maintaining, removing, and trying to protect the ship from that.
Most people are generally, audience is 30s to 40s. We have some baby boomers too, my age.
Mhm.
So if they want to go out and get a job in the Merchant Marine doing what you're doing, how do you do that?
Well, you know what? I was lucky enough in that I found a shipping company that operated along the East Coast and down through Galveston, and then ran their ships through the Panama Canal across the Pacific, and then had stops in Australia and New Zealand. And that company had some captains that were willing to take on what they called workways. So you would work your passage on the ship, and I was able to get on one of those ships. I got on the ship in Galveston, went through the Panama travels. I ended up flying back. By the time I'd finished my travels, I was in the middle of the Pacific, and I just caught an airplane to Hawaii and then flew into San Francisco.
Sounds like a great adventure time, right?
I was single, and you know, I think it's important for young people to see some of the world.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good thing to do. See that there's more than just the town you end up in or wherever. You know, one thing about Reno is we're doing a lot of local interviews right now because of the elections, and you happen to be running for office. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing now as attorney and involved to want to run for city attorney.
Sure.
Why would you want to get involved with any kind of race? Races are so difficult, and
Well,
it's a hit or miss. It's very expensive.
first of all, I believe that cities, local governments are really the source of innovation when it comes to government. And it can be difficult to find innovation in government. But I really think at the local level, that's where you have the closest connection to the citizens, to the people, and can make the biggest difference. And I also think it's important that we elect our city attorney in Reno, because most cities don't. In about 8 nationwide, the city attorney is appointed by either the city council or the city manager and serves at the pleasure of the city council or the city manager. But in Reno, we decided to elect our city attorney. So that individual is placed in office by the citizens and is accountable directly to the citizens for their performance.
Right, I think it's a great idea because you keep in check. You're in the closed sessions, things of that nature, independent set of eyes that doesn't have to worry about being fired by the city council or the mayor.
Independent elected official who
Right.
I think is expected to exercise your independent judgment to look out for the best interests of the community.
Right.
And you're correct. You can tell the client what they don't want to hear and don't have to worry about the consequences of it because you're accountable to the people.
Right, right. You have no vote, but you're a staff. You're an elected staff member. In Reno, who else is elected? You have the city council, the mayor, of course,
And the city attorney, and those
city
are the only
attorney.
elected
That's it.
offices in city government.
county city clerk is appointed by
The council.
council, and they hire the city
City
manager.
manager is appointed by the council.
Sort of modified Western version. Is that true throughout Nevada, that all of the city attorneys?
No,
Yeah.
interestingly enough, the cities of Reno and Sparks chose in their city charters to elect their city attorney. All of the other municipalities in Nevada, the city attorney is appointed.
How
the
old is
city
the
council.
charter?
How old's the Reno city charter?
Does it go back to the foundation of the
Yeah.
city?
Yes,
Wow.
correct.
So, wow, it's Nevada's a unique state.
It is.
It's really unique and hard to keep up with in studying Western history.
It is.
So what did you do prior? What do you do now?
Right now, I serve as a special deputy attorney general, so I'm senior policy advisor to the Nevada. I focus on the enforcement of Nevada law for the protection of our citizens. In my prior state office, before my wife and I had our adventure in Micronesia, I represented state officials and agencies, and in that capacity, and contracts that involved the expenditure of taxpayer money. I enforced compliance with the Nevada open meeting and public records laws, and I defended state officers and agencies when they were sued in either state or federal court.
How long have you been doing that?
Well, I've been practicing law for 21 years.
21 years. You've been working for the state for how long?
About half of my career, maybe a little over half of my career, has been spent with the Attorney General, and the remainder in the private sector.
You know, it's funny. Growing up in California and even being pretty active in local politics, I never got an opportunity to see the Sacramento elite. We call it the oligarchy, the third house, because of the people in Sacramento so big. But here in Nevada, that's another thing. And we'll go into a commercial about Nevada, why it's such a neat state, is you're so close to your government.
It's true.
I mean, I'll see the governor down eating ice cream. I won't say where he's eating it because it's in my neighborhood, but
It's true. The accessibility of our elected officials is probably unparalleled throughout the United States.
and I love the part-time legislature too.
Oh, certainly.
I mean, that's good.
Certainly. I handle legislative affairs for the Attorney General's office. We are actually given a bill package of legislative proposals we can take, and we bring proposals to the legislature that we think are in the best interest of our citizens and will protect our citizens. We've been very successful with our legislative proposals. Last session, we had all 15 of our bill draft requests enacted into law. But I will tell you, going through that process, that I am glad it is limited to 120 days every 2 years.
Right.
I wouldn't want to see it expanded beyond that because it's a very intense process. And I think that I think the fact that we do limit it in that respect requires us to be more focused in what we propose and when we propose it, and to bring quality proposals to the legislature because we don't have a full-time.
And it's got to limit the number of laws that are created, and only every 2 years, basically, right? That they kick in.
Correct.
And that really helps. In California, of course, you've got January have a whole myriad of new laws to have
Correct.
to follow. But they can also correct things sometimes. I did design build construction in California up to the 9/11, and a lot of laws to follow, a lot of regulations.
Well, you bring up another point. That's regulations, and certainly a number of regulations are adopted every year as well, and they don't face that same constraint that our legislature does in enacting laws. Regulations can be enacted on a much more regular basis, and so some folks would like us to take a closer look at the rate and frequency with which we enact regulations and ensure that those make sense as well.
Right. Hypnotherapists. I know I interviewed a hypnotherapist, and I know some things just affected his business here in the state. It was
well, they do have an impact upon our economy and upon the ability of businesses to thrive and grow and engage in commerce. And I think it is important that we look at the regulations we enact because they can impede the ability of our economy to grow and thrive just as easily as a bad law could.
So how do you work at will in the
Yes.
state? So what happens if there's a new state attorney elected, which there will be?
Attorney General?
Attorney general elected.
Once again, I serve at the pleasure of the elected, and I'm fine with that.
So yeah, I see. Interesting. Those are, you never know when you're going to have a job, especially in politics.
You never know when you have a job in the real world,
True.
in the private sector,
Unless you're a GS.
unless you want to go out and start your own business.
True. Even then,
There's no guarantees in life.
no, there's not. There's not. Some places are more secure than others, depending on what you're going to do.
Certainly.
So I always ask somebody from Nevada to give a commercial about why they live here and what they like about the area.
Wow. How many hours do we have for this podcast?
Do you live down towards Carson City?
I live
Gardner?
in just a few blocks from here. My son, we'll regularly walk down here for Art Town.
Oh yeah,
to
Mayberry
go to
area.
the movies. Yeah,
We live close to each other.
yeah.
I love it.
And we just love, and now with the thriving dining scene in Midtown and emerging elsewhere, we love the fact that we can walk or ride our bikes and even bring the dog along. A lot of our dining establishments now let you bring your dog and sit out on the patio. We love that. We love the walkability of our downtown core. It's incredible. I think it's incomparable. There are very few places that have the walkability that our city has.
And bikes too.
And bikes.
And bikes, bingo.
And as we continue to strengthen our downtown core and diversify it, it's only going to get better.
You know, you go 10-minute drive or even 7-minute, where I live in Mayberry Meadows, 7-8-minute drive, you're a trailhead for Hunter Creek.
25-minute drive and you're on the lift on slide side of Mount Rose ski area and skiing.
Oh yeah, Mount Rose. And
You know,
Truckee's 25 minutes away.
I grew up in Colorado, so I thought, you couldn't touch Colorado for the skiing. It wasn't until I'd lived here a few years that I found out that we actually here have the greatest concentration of ski areas around any metropolitan area of any place in the world. You can't touch it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it so much more now. If I go back to Colorado to see family and we want to go skiing, it's a 2-hour drive, and that's if there's no traffic.
There's a lot of traffic in Denver.
Oh, there's
a lot of traffic.
There's a tremendous amount heading up on the weekends, somewhat like we see with the traffic coming up from the Bay Area
on the weekends.
On the weekends,
I sort of like that. People come in and people leave.
But we don't have to contend with that traffic living on this side of the Sierras, and so that's something that's awful special in the winter. You could, like I said, you can be on Mount Rose skiing in 25 minutes. I can be on Squaw skiing in about 50 minutes.
Right.
And in the summer, we can be up at Lake Tahoe doing kayaking, paddle boards, mountain biking.
We're going
just a short drive. I don't think you can. We have the most incredible backyard anywhere.
No, we do.
That's the only way to put it.
Yeah, it's an interesting mix. I think we're changing a lot because we used to be a gambling city 20 years ago. And it's really moving away from that environment because of the impact of the deregulation of gambling across the United States.
Certainly. And certainly we appreciate our gaming industry here, and they contribute to our economy.
Oh, yeah, they have it tremendously.
They have.
That's why we have a draw with the hotels.
But at the same time, they've embraced our efforts to diversify and that we can bring in tourism.
Yeah, it helps them too.
Yeah.
It helps them. It all pats, but they're being revived a little bit because of our natural resources.
I think it's mutually beneficial for all of us.
Yeah, but they want some hard times, though.
Oh, certainly.
Because of what happened.
But it's mutually beneficial for all of us that we create an environment here that's got a strong, diverse economy that still focuses on the amenities that we have here, the outdoor amenities, the river that flows right through our downtown, the incredible diversity of dining here. Our dining options here, our food options are absolutely incredible. And all of those things mixed together, the events we have, the special events that we have, Art Town, the balloon races, Hot August nights.
Rodeo is excellent, Hot August, everything. And gliding too.
There's just a little bit of everything, but it's a great combination.
Hiking, mountains, good air. Yeah. Unlike Denver, we have actually fairly healthy, clean air 99% of the time, except when there's a fire.
Well, I think we all appreciated our generally clean air during the fire the last couple of weeks.
So what I'm trying to do is we're doing both a podcast and we are doing a Google Hangout too. So I'm going to try to pull up I am going to pull up your website at the end. So Brett, I'll pull that up so people can see it. But we're going to sort of transition now into the next 4 questions. This is the fun part of the show, for me at least. It's a little different. And do you use a Mac or PC, and what type of phone do you have?
I have an iPhone, and our family computer is a Mac.
Oh, good. I would expect an attorney to have PCs because...
Well, my state-issued laptop is a PC, but our family uses a Mac, and we also have an iPad.
It's really good for kids, especially your 10-year-old. He can probably do circles around you on that iPad.
I wouldn't even try to challenge my son. If I get confused or lost or something doesn't work, he's the one that explains it to me.
Out of curiosity, does the state issue a phone or give you credit for?
No, my phone is a phone that I bought and paid for myself.
I wouldn't expect the state to have an iPhone. It's too nice. I hate to say that.
I wouldn't expect the taxpayers to fund that for me.
I came from California. They actually issue phones out.
Well, you know what? I tell you what. The city attorney is provided an allowance for a phone and a car and for bar association dues. I will not accept any of that if I'm elected city attorney.
There is cost, though. I mean, you have costs. When you're city attorney, you're still going to have costs. But you know what? Normal people don't get those benefits.
No.
Only.
Yeah, and as a state official, I've never received reimbursement for my car or for my phone.
And I know where you live.
For my bar dues.
You're going to be able to ride the bike down town.
You know what? That's a neat thing.
I do that in a heartbeat.
If I'm elected, I'm going to walk to work.
Or walk, even better.
I'm going to walk to work every day.
That's nice.
I love the thought of that.
How long does it take you to walk?
It's about a 15-minute walk, all told, from where our house is in Old Southwest to get down here to the river.
And that's good for the brain, too, because after a hard day, just walking back.
It's an incredible neighborhood.
Yep,
the mature trees, every house is different and unique, and to look at the architecture.
Looking down at the water, as you see the river, across the river. So very good. So what are some of your favorite technologies?
Technology is great, but let's not let technology supplant
Face
us
to
as
face.
people.
Yeah. A lot of people doing what I do don't do the face to face. And I think the face to face is really important.
I agree.
Going out to dinner once in a while with somebody,
I agree.
having a real conversation without a smartphone.
I agree.
Very good. So, what quote motivates you? You have a favorite quote?
Yeah. There's a quote that my father, when he was in Vietnam, carried around with him that he shared with me as a young man. And it's from Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. And the quote is, "As life is action and passion, it is required of a man that he share the passion and action of his time at peril of being judged to not have lived."
Very good. I understand it totally. Better to do than do not. Very good. That's excellent. What is your favorite author and book?
That's tough. I love to read. And when you're talking about fiction, probably a couple of my favorite books are Catch-22 from Joseph Heller and John Irving's A Prayer for Owen Meany. And if you're talking about history, nonfiction, I like to read history. I really like William Manchester, the author. I don't know if you read any of his 3-volume biography of Winston Churchill. The Last Lion is incredible. His biography of Douglas MacArthur, American Caesar. I really, really enjoyed, he's passed away now, but
Right.
I really enjoyed William Manchester's writing style.
I think they made a movie off of American Caesar too, called
They may
MacArthur. I
have.
think it was called MacArthur.
They may
I
have.
read most of the book. It's a big book.
They may have.
I started reading it.
But that's
One of the
tough when
ones.
you talk about reading, because there's just so
Yeah.
much incredible literature and history out there. And one thing I really like is my 10-year-old son, Kyle, has my love of history and geography and loves reading. He devours, 500-page books in a few days. And he and I love to talk about history together and look at maps together. And I really enjoy that.
Stepping back to being an attorney, I would say that'd be a fundamental element to love to read, because you do have to read a lot to make it through law school.
You know, you have to be able to read, you have to be able to write and effectively communicate. But these are important skills for anybody, whether they go into the legal profession or
Right.
not. And another thing I would encourage all young people to do at the earliest possible opportunity is to engage in activities that require them to get up and present themselves in public to other people, whether it be a debate society, Toastmasters, doesn't matter. I think it's very important to succeed in life, to be very comfortable getting up and speaking in front of other people. And I would encourage young people to seek those opportunities out at the earliest
Right.
possible time they can.
Have you been in Toastmasters?
I haven't. I've heard of Toastmasters, but I just those types of activities.
But you had
I
to
think
speak
are
a lot
really
in school,
important.
of course.
Well,
And
my
as an attorney.
understanding is, there are a lot of activities that people can get into, young people can get into at an early age that put them in that situation where they have to
Speak
in public.
debate.
And I just think that that's very important. Certainly I have to do that every day, whether it's testifying to the legislature, speaking to a community group on some issue of importance to them that the Attorney General's office is focused on, whether it's running for office and making public appearances as a candidate. But I think it's important, no matter what profession you choose, to be able to express yourself, communicate effectively, both in writing and in terms of speaking.
What do you enjoy doing now, tying it all together, when you're not reading, working, or campaigning? What do you enjoy doing on your off time?
You know what? Love the outdoors.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that a little bit. And I love skiing in the winter and in the summer. We love getting up and enjoying Lake Tahoe like so many people do. And in fact, one of our favorite things to do as a family is to go into Emerald Bay every summer. They have boaters camp on the north shore of Emerald Bay. You can only get into it by boat. It's not a campsite that they allow vehicles into. And there's only 22 campsites there. And then there's a mooring for each campsite for whatever watercraft you use to come in on. We actually kayak in every summer from Baldwin Beach and spend 3 or 4 nights there at Boaters Camp in Emerald Bay as a family. Not only my wife and son and I, but my mother-in-law, my parents, my brother and sister and their families. We make it an annual family
That's a
gathering.
good thing to do.
We just get together and spend quality time there, and it's just an incredible experience.
I've never been down at the bottom of Emerald Bay, but is there a waterfall down there? I know up on the top.
There's Eagle Falls right
Eagles
behind
Falls, that's what I was
right behind Vikingsholm.
Okay.
Mhm.
I've seen it from the top side.
Yeah.
Interesting. Beautiful. And spending time here, you really get to know those secrets. I'm looking forward to doing some of those same things. I've done the Truckee a few times before when they still had a lot of water.
Yeah.
But my kids, my girls, 12 and 14.
Well, and something else, now that my son's getting a little bit older, getting back into backpacking. I used to backpack quite a bit when I was younger. I'd usually go out for a week every summer with a group of guys and eat the freeze-dried food and lose 15 pounds. And I got away from that a little bit when I became a father. And so while we've done a lot of camping together as a family, my son's expressed the interest now and old enough that we're going to get back into backpacking. And we'll probably start in Desolation Wilderness, but you name it, anywhere along the Sierra. I've done most sections of the John Muir Trail.
I was just up there 2 weeks ago.
Absolutely incredible. And so I'm really
Mount Whitney,
looking forward.
You got up Whitney?
Oh yeah, I've climbed Whitney 3 or 4 times.
Back side or front side?
Just
from
the
east side?
standard approach
Both
up
side,
the front side.
You doing a day?
No, you know what? I don't
That's
think it's worth doing it.
You
It's
should
22 miles.
No. Do not do it in a day.
It's 22 miles, and my whole idea is you're there to enjoy it.
Oh, you
It's
can't
not
enjoy it.
supposed
It's
to be a race,
painful.
and I know some folks would prefer to make it a race.
Yeah.
But for me, whether it's doing a section of the John Muir Trail or whether it's climbing Whitney or another mountain, to me, it's not a race. It's something you do and take your time and enjoy being out there. So our approach whenever I've done Whitney is we'll go up, make a camp, spend one night, summit,
There's
come back down
two
to
camps.
camp. Yeah, it's
Higher-
the upper.
You go to the upper camp.
upper
Wow.
camp.
It's
Yeah,
about,
we'll
is
get
that
that
12,000? I've been up there.
probably.
Yeah, that's just, you got to get used to it.
Yeah, so we'll go up
10,000
there,
lower camp.
spend a night, then summit, come
Yep.
back down, spend a night,
At
and
the
then
lower
walk
camp
out.
or stay at the upper camp?
Stay at the upper camp those 2 nights, but that to me is ideal because
Yeah.
you can enjoy it and not rush yourself. But there's so many neat things to do. My son and I just a few weeks ago, when we had the weekend with the full moon, the really big full
Oh, we just
moon,
had the harvest moon.
like what was it, a month ago?
Yeah, the huge ones.
We together with a group of folks, we climbed Mount Rose under the full moon. We started out just before sunset, and we summited at about 11 o'clock under that full moon and could look down and see the lights of
Mhm.
Reno. My son loved that. He
How
thought
long
that
did
was
that
the
hike
neatest thing. Oh, we got back about 2 o'clock in the morning.
What time did you take off?
Yeah, you're going to ask me that. 8? I don't know.
Okay,
And
so it's
we didn't,
nice.
once again, we didn't rush it.
Yeah, I want to take my daughters up that.
Yeah, it was neat, and we really enjoyed that. So I think my son's gotten the hiking and backpacking bug as well, and I'm looking forward. You couldn't live any place better when it comes to that.
And then we've got Mount Lassen too, which is for my 6 when they're 6 and 8. I try to take my girls up Mount.
I haven't
Lassen.
climbed Lassen.
So
I
I-
actually did Shasta,
Oh, Shasta's hard.
which was really neat. I did that with a friend that's a bit of a mountaineer, and so we had the crampons and the ice
Well, I can say there's
axes,
a
and
lot of
that was a
snow
really
on-
neat
it's
experience
got a lot
as
of
well.
snow.
We started out at about 2 in the morning.
That's actually a dangerous mountain. People don't realize that.
Oh yeah. Well, I think anytime you're outside, you need to
Yeah.
respect nature. You know.
I've got a story. I won't go there. Very good. That's a good thing to do. So in closing, for the listener, what takeaways should they take from your interview? Not so much about your campaign, about just your philosophy and what they need to do some of the things that you've done.
Well, I don't know. Like I said, I don't consider myself an extraordinary person, but when it comes to my legal career, I haven't been afraid to think outside of the box. So if at some time in your career, whether you're an attorney or not, you have a chance to do something maybe unique, something a little bit different, don't be afraid to do it. Don't think it'll take you off the career track. I've never regretted hopping on a container ship and seeing a little bit of the world right after law school before I took a bar exam. I've never regretted walking away from the Attorney General's office for a 2-year opportunity to live in Micronesia with my wife.
And then coming back.
And coming back.
That's good.
So don't be afraid to think a little bit about outside the box, think outside the box, and also see some of the world. It's really important that you see some of the world. And if you can study overseas at some point, I had a chance to spend one of my summers in law school studying in Madrid, Spain. If you have a chance to work overseas, do it. I've had a chance to work overseas. And if just the chance to travel overseas, it's just an incredible world out there. As much as we live in an incredible place, and there's so much in our backyard. It's an incredible world, and I would just encourage young people when they're pursuing their careers to think outside the box. Don't shy away from unique opportunities.
All right. Sounds excellent. So how can we reach you? What's your best site? You've got your webpage here, which we'll have up in show notes.
My campaign site is at brettcant.com. I'm also on Facebook, Brett Cant for Reno City Attorney. My cell phone number's 775-232-1896, and that's on my website and on every piece of literature that's handed out. And I'm always available to talk to anybody.
So Brett, that sort of finishes up the Timelines of Success podcast. We'll have all the notes there. But on the behind the scenes Google Plus Hangout YouTube presentation, I'm going to go up, put up your website. And we'll pull it up here. There it is. It's kind of interesting finding your website because it has that dynamic picture moving across it. You got a nice website.
Well, that's what happens when you get young, bright people to put that stuff together for you.
Very good website. Very, very good. That's I'm looking at it right now. I'm going to let it run for a couple of seconds, but we already finished up the podcast. But I'm going to ask you one last question for the podcast. So I'll push in. This is a good one. What's your favorite food?
My favorite food?
Yeah. What do you like to eat best?
If I had to eat one thing for the rest of my life, it would be fish tacos.
Oh, good stuff. I make them too. I love them. Yep. Fish tacos. I do salmon too. I take salmon patties and stick them. I make all sorts of tacos.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, you could use it, some sort of a white fish. You could use salmon, but everything. Salmon or fish tacos.
I put them in the toaster, then I fry them too, which is kind of neat. I love it.
You know what? This time of year, we have the good weather. Obviously, it's starting to cool off now, but just taking a fresh piece of fish and throwing it on the grill, rubbing some spice on it, and then bringing it off and bringing out the tortillas. And
have you been to Alaska yet?
Have I been to Alaska?
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
Kenai and
yeah, well, it was just briefly. I was probably there for 5 or 6 days total, but got a little bit of a feel for what a special place it is, and gave me some idea of wanting to go back, take my family, and explore it even more.
Best fresh fish in the world up there. I'm military, so I get there a lot.
Well, I don't know. Micronesia. When we lived in Micronesia, what kind because they would. These purse signers would come in with the freshly caught ahi tuna.
Ahi, oh yeah,
and they would pack it into ice and then fly it out to Korea and Japan, and we were able to buy that fish, and the prices were incredible. So you could get fresh ahi or fresh shark, and it would be
I know about shark
30 or 40 cents a pound. It was so cheap that's what we fed our dog that we brought over with us, and the dog we adopted, and the cat we adopted.
Healthy dogs.
Our dog Scrappy that we brought from the United States. After 2 years of eating fish, and we came home, and the first time I put a bowl of dry dog food in front of him, he shoved it across the floor with his nose and walked away. Yeah. So
that's a good way to finish up. Thanks, Brett. It's good. Good interview. Let me shut this down. We're still live, so.